Nolan Arenado is heating up, as is Michael Conforto. Matt McLain has gotten the call, as has Christopher Morel. We'll talk about those hitters, plus we'll talk key injury down in Florida. Come on up on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Jeff Erickson here with Fred Zinkie. Fred, been a busy weekend. How busy were you on the Yuri Perez and Christopher Morel bidding?
Not that busy on Perez and didn't have a lot of shots at Morel.
Yeah.
Kind of regret not paying up for Morel in one of my leagues. I tried to get cheap and it didn't work. Perez, I knew he was going to be really expensive. I didn't get any shares. I did put in, I would say I just put in keep you honest bids in most leagues, like 200, something like that.
Right.
I do have some concerns over how many innings he'll throw this year. I think he'll be good, but I did have some concerns over how many innings he'll throw. And I would say in large part so far, my teams are doing better in the pitching standings than the hitting standings. So yeah. I wasn't totally sure if I wanted to spend what would have probably amounted to 40% of my remaining budget, maybe even half of my remaining budget in some leagues on Perez.
I wasn't super aggressive on Perez in labor because I already bought Tanner Bybee and I was already below $50.
Humble brag right there. Congrats.
No, not really.
That's a smart move. I would rather have. That's a good, actually tough call. I mean, I would rather have Bybee than Perez.
I mean, I think Bybee might throw more innings.
Me too. He might pitch better too. He's really good.
We'll see. We'll see about that. We already have a home run in, by the way, in Baltimore. The very first batter for the Angels has homer, just in case you know, just to prove that we're doing this live during the games. But I also, he came up first, and I can't. My team is a disaster there. It's becoming less of a disaster. It's now I think climbed all the way to 11th. So dizzying heights. Mickey Moniak, by the way, with the home run for the Angels, in case you wanted to know
he was a popular ad.
I like him.
Cheap ad, but popular.
Yeah, the question is what happens when everybody's healthy there? How does he get his playing time? But I think he's a good pivot if you couldn't get Morel, though. That's for sure.
For sure.
But yeah, anyways, I was in on Perez. I got him in 2 of my main events. I badly missed out on him on a third, but I had healthy bids in all 3, like 255 and 1 and 313 in another where I had the need was more acute. I do share some concerns about Perez's innings. I think that off the top, it might be like Mason Miller though, where you get your innings, then you worry about where you're going to get other innings later.
Yeah, for sure. I think. I don't know. I think if the pitchers are worth these bids, then he is worth these bids. It's a whole separate argument that we've already talked about a bit as far as like,
for sure,
is one rookie starting pitcher worth $300 of your FAAB budget? So that's a separate issue. If the answer to that is yes, or if the answer to that is no, but I don't have any choice, so I guess I'm in, then I think he's as worthy as any of the other targets. Yeah, that's a change, I feel like, this year, how much we're paying for these rookie starting pitchers. And I think that will be definitely something worth assessing after the season. Were they worth it? How many of them were worth it? Was there an alternative way to grind out pitching? Because I think one of the things driving these big bids is that it's hard to stream starting pitchers. So I think that will be the other thing is like, did anyone have success? Or did many people have success just grabbing $10, $20, $30 starters here and there? I mean, there's been some pitchers who have come up. Louis Varland was more of a double-digit type bid in a lot of leagues than a triple-digit type bid.
He's around 60 in my main event leagues, by the way. So.
I think I landed him in the 40s or 50s in some leagues. So, so it'll be interesting to see how many of those pitchers there are at the end of the year where you were like, oh, okay, yeah, or just ones that you were able to stream for a few weeks here and there. So, how much better will Perez be than James Paxton, who wasn't cheap on Sunday, but wasn't nearly as expensive as Perez?
Yeah. Yep. I think that's, the thing is, I looked in my main event leagues, Paxton was already rostered. People were smarter than me and picked him up before he made, before that. Yeah. Bench bats. Okay. I got to say this real quick. I'm responding to Uncle Ted about this, and he is our most loyal listener. So I feel compelled to respond every once in a while. I disagree that bench bats are dumb. There are times, especially in the NFBC, you know your format, obviously. And if you're in a head-to-head league, this might play differently. But at least in the NFBC, where we have, you can switch your roster, your hitter roster on Friday. You can account for good series. Or say, for instance, last week when Baltimore, Toronto, Philly, and Boston only had 2 games Monday through Thursday. Other team, you bench your marginal hitters for those and try to get somebody that has 3 or 4 games. I think there's some value in that. If you got a guy that you have to deal with platoons. Now, if you're playing in a 10-team or 12-team mixed league and it's head-to-head league, okay, that's probably a little less relevant. And I think you need to pay attention to your league settings. Obviously, he might be right. It might be a completely different format there.
Yeah, for sure. So, for example, in our Yahoo Friends and Family, I think I try to have very few bench bats, maybe one, but not a lot because we can stream daily. So it makes sense to have a lot of relievers in your lineup, move the starters in and out on the days they start. In a full weekly, it probably makes sense to have a lot of pitchers on your bench so you can rotate them and not as many hitters because it's full weekly. You're right though, in the NFBC, being able to move hitters in and out based on matchups or volume of games on the Monday to Thursday schedule. Also, so I have a couple NFBC teams where most of the bench right now is hitters, and that's not necessarily by design, but I'm not going to pick up a pitcher off waivers just for the sake of having a pitcher, right? In a 15-team league. So, for example, if there are no starting pitchers on waivers who I believe in at all, right, that I can get, then it doesn't, to me, make sense to pick up Patrick Corbin at the expense of a hitter who I find intriguing, or to just pick up like Eric Swanson. Eric Swanson's someone who I've streamed in and out of lineups when I'm really stuck at pitcher a few times this year, so he's come to mind. I pick him up for $1. I use him for the week. I drop him just if I need someone for an active roster spot. He typically has good ratios, pitches in high leverage situations. So, but I don't really need to keep Eric Swanson on my bench or anyone like him. I can, but I don't really need to. So if there's an intriguing hitter,
the waiver wire is your bench in that.
So if there's an intriguing hitter, then I'd rather have the intriguing hitter than just the pitcher, just for the sake of having to have just for the sake of saying I have a certain amount of pitchers on my bench.
Sure.
Yeah.
And your format, absolutes are tough to apply because so much of our game is format dependent, context dependent there. So you can absolutely be right. So both sides can be right about this a little bit there.
Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned Patrick Corbin. I streamed him actually this week.
Good for you.
2 starts. Got the win on Monday against the Mets. And then he gets the Tigers this weekend. Now, before you compliment me too much, he struck out 1 guy. So that is, it's kind of tough to get by with 1 strikeout on a roster spot. Now, hopefully he'll get like 6 or 7 against Detroit over the weekend.
He's allowed 3 or fewer earned runs in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight starts.
Yes, he has.
If he makes it 7, does he survive your roster purge on Sunday?
Oh, he's almost certainly a cut on Sunday.
What if he had a good start? What if he's 6 shutout against the Tigers this weekend? Let's say the strikeouts aren't remarkable.
Well, you know
6
what? I
shutouts,
take
3
that
earned
back.
runs,
He's gonna survive another week because he gets Kansas City next.
Okay. There you go.
So it's a 2-week pickup. But if he say he gives up like 4 runs in 6 innings on Saturday against the Tigers, he might still be a cut.
Right. Yep.
Because if I can't trust him against Detroit, well, then who can you trust him against? But sorry, Tiger fans out there. I'm a Reds fan, so bear trust me, it can be worse. Anyways, thought we'd kind of just start off with the FAAB results. Yuri Perez started that conversation. We'll stay with the Marlins and talk about Jazz Chisholm. The news came down out 4 to 6 weeks, the turf toe injury. You knew when when they said he was going to go see a specialist, you knew it wasn't going to be good. This is a pretty bad case scenario here for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Just brutal for fantasy managers who have him and are probably relying on him for stolen bases. He already has 14. So Jazz Chisholm's interesting. I don't have any shares of him, so I hadn't followed him, super close. I knew how he was doing, but the sample size is pretty small, so I don't want to draw any big conclusions from it. But going into last year, the book on Jazz Chisholm was he was a good fantasy asset, but not a great ball player. And then last year, he had the 860 OPS, but only in 60 games. So then I felt like the narrative going into this year was more that maybe he was a great fantasy asset and a great ball player. Well, so far this year, we're back to the original assessment of him, and it's not a BABIP problem or anything like that. He is a great fantasy asset. Like, we're looking at him, if he hadn't been injured, just his paces, which I know is dangerous to extrapolate, but we're looking at something in the range of 25 homers and 50 steals, over 50 something steals. Really impressive. But he's got a 694 OPS. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. He's going to come back. You're going to have him for a good chunk of time, even with this injury, right? So get him back probably in July, or hopefully early July, and we'll see where things go from there with him. But he definitely hasn't done anything yet now to shed this injury-prone label that he had even going into the season.
Yeah, that's true. Two other things about him. He almost has more stolen bases than RBI. I think that it reflects two things: the Marlins lineup around, and also that he wasn't really it was either boom or bust. It was either he'd get the homer or he'd do nothing, and so that was kind of a problem there a little bit. And then the other thing is he was adjusting to playing center field, and I don't think he was quite there yet. I don't think he was that solid defensively.
Yeah, no, both. Yeah, definitely really good points on him. The run and RBI totals too so far were really dismal, 16 in each. I'm not really going to fault him with that. Although it matters a little bit when you have a 291 OBP, you're not going to have you're going to have to.
You're not going to score a lot of runs.
Not going to score a lot of runs when you're getting on base that rarely, unless you're in a really great lineup or just really lucky. Exactly. Either way, he's a great fantasy asset. He's a hold even in 10-team leagues. Even if you had to use a bench spot, there's just so much potential there. But I'd love to see him when he's back in July, like in the second half. I'd love to see him have an OPS that looks more like 800 than 700.
Yeah, I would too. Next year, he was on average, he was the first second baseman drafted. Obviously, you're not going to get him at second base, which probably drags his value down at least a little bit, because second base, there is some positional scarcity still. Going like basically in the third round in most leagues. Are you willing to pay that price in a 15-teamer?
If he comes back from this injury and stays healthy for the rest of the year, yes. Yeah. It's hard to get this amount of home runs and steals from a player in the third round. So I would say if he plays the rest of the year, finishes the year with, I don't know, let's say 20 home runs, even with the injury, he could still finish the year with 20 home runs and 35 steals. That'd be pretty impressive.
Yeah. I wasn't on him to begin with, so I'm probably not the right person to ask, because I was already pre-skeptical. This obviously hasn't proved my opinion, but I also hadn't realized he had 14 stolen bases because I don't have him anywhere. I really hadn't had like a close line on what his on exactly what he exactly been doing. I knew he had. I looked up every once in a while, saw him hit a big homer, see him steal a base here and there, but I don't know. Marlins are really thin in the outfield right now. Avisail Garcia is on the IL. Jesus Sanchez is on the IL. Chisholm's obviously on the IL. So you're looking at and Soler really, as an outfielder, he's a good DH. So you don't really want him to play the outfield. De La Cruz, Hampson, and Peyton Burdick are basically your top three outfielders right now. Any interest in, obviously De La Cruz is probably rostered in many leagues, 15 teamers at least, but in a 12-teamer, does that make you more interested in De La Cruz? And are you interested in Hampson or Burdick at all?
Nope. I would say no. De La Cruz in a 12, I think he's just a streamer. Just week to week, if you like the matchup. If someone wanted to roster him permanently, then they can have him. He was on waivers in a 15 one of my 15s recently, like in the last couple of weeks. That lineup is not very good right now. Right. Yeah. With those players out, that lineup was never great. And right now it looks like a solid target, right, to stream pitchers. So especially it's also very right-handed heavy right now. So, Joey Wendell's the left-handed bat and Luis Arias, that's it. There's not even a switch hitter in there. So very right-handed heavy. Yeah. So for a right-handed pitcher who does well against right-handed batters, that's a really good, or even does decently, that's a really good lineup, I think, to stream against right now.
I agree. Yeah. They're facing the Nats right now for the next, 3 days, and then Miami is facing after that. They get they hit the road. They go at San Francisco, at Colorado for 4, and that at the Angels. That's right, because when I was looking at Yuri Perez, I was like, oh, next week he gets the Nationals this week. Yay. Then at Coors Field and at Anaheim. I don't like either of those.
Okay, well there's an interesting. Okay, so if we want to think about just streaming and cheap ways to find hitting, they're going to Colorado at the start of next week. And, guys like Garrett Hampson, if Garrett Hampson's going to play regularly for the rest of this week, maybe get a few games hitting leadoff, why not? Like, look at him for that Coors Field series, or De La Cruz in a 12 if he's still out there. There's some 12s where Gene Segura's gotten close to the cut line. He's had a really, really dismal start to the season.
Yeah, he has.
So he could be available too in some leagues. Garrett Cooper is, because he was hurt, just came back on the weekend. So there could be some Marlins who would be sneaky streamers for the start of next week.
Yeah, I was thinking Hampson, maybe you get some sneaky stolen bases. Only 2 so far this year, but maybe a little bit more. Birdie is more likely to play than not because of this also. Garrett Cooper will play more often because of this than not. Although I think he would have played pretty regularly now that he's off the IL anyhow. But anyhow, thought I'd mention that. Manny Machado out of the lineup today. They said it's kind of a minor issue with him after getting hit by a pitch. I just wanted to bring him up, and I brought him up on this Sirius XM show today with Nick Whalen too. He's just not having a good year so far. 231. The hard hit rates are down. 5 homers, in a bit of a slump lately. 654 OPS. I don't think this lasts, but this hand injury, this doesn't help.
No, definitely not. And one of my other concerns about Machado is that he isn't stealing bases. And last year, he stole almost all of his bases before he ended up on the injured list. So he had 7 steals at the end of May, and then he ended up on the IL last year. Sorry, he didn't end up on the IL. He just ended up hurt. I'm misremembering.
No, that was where he had that
was
really
the nagging injury.
He had that turned ankle on that play at first base,
and he
played through it.
You're right,
and it was disgusting to look at. And we were like, "Oh, don't show that replay again." And then he never went on the IL. He was like, "No, I'm going to bet back," and he missed like 8 days.
Yes,
so he technically beat it, but they were better off just putting him on the IL because then he stunk for a while too. He had 2 stolen bases so far this year. So
2, and he had 2 in the last 4 months last year. So I don't know. I felt like going back into this year that maybe he would get back to stealing because the ankle. So you're right. I remembered it as he had a brief IL stint because of the ankle. In the end,
might as well have.
But it clearly stopped him from stealing bases. He didn't steal a base after that injury for like 2.5 months, and then barely stole after that. So if his days as a base stealer are done, then that will significant, because he wasn't a big base stealer before, but he could get you like 10.
Right.
And that mattered, especially in the old stolen bases landscape. That really mattered.
Sure.
But yeah, he's definitely off to a slow start this year. We'll see where things go from here. But yeah, I would be like a little worried. Not sell low on Manny, kind of worried. But yeah, he's definitely been. Rafael Devers has also been a little underwhelming. Manny's been more underwhelming.
Yeah, Austin Riley has been underwhelming. Nolan Arenado, we'll get to him in a second. Because he's on our risers segment that we have so conveniently touted. But before this weekend, he slumped. Bregman's been terrible. Cabrian Hayes hasn't been good. I mean, you go down the list, there's a lot of disappointing third basemen right now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, and part of the strategy this year with a lot of people was to get one of the third basemen you just mentioned, because you didn't want to have to deal with the third baseman at the bottom of the crop, the ones you could get in round 15, 20, etc. You're not getting that much more out of a lot of these players so far. So far it hasn't really turned out. Now, again, it's early. I did do a deeper dive on Bregman after we talked about him last week. I think there's been enough bad luck there that I would be willing to buy low on him in a trading league where such an opportunity presented itself. I do think Arenado is coming around and will come around.
Yeah, he came around. He's done. He has made it around that bend already. 4 homers in 4 days. So.
Yeah. So I think he's come around. Yeah. His numbers will come back up to typical Nolan Arenado numbers, I think, by the end of the year, or by the end of the month.
Yep.
Something like that. One of my article that I have coming out later this week at Yahoo is just sometimes in trading leagues, sometimes there's a statistical reason to buy low on a player, as in like a super low BABIP or something like that.
Right.
Super low home run to fly ball rate. Sometimes there's no statistical reason. You just know that this player just isn't this bad.
And that's Machado for me.
Right. And it was Arenado a week ago.
Yeah.
Right. So a week ago, if you were going to trade for Arenado, who at the time had, I think he's got 5 home runs since May 6th. On May 5th, he had 2 home runs. Like if you wanted to go and trade for him then, or right, like I think that you don't even need. Well, yeah, you can look at the advanced stats, but even without looking at the advanced stats, you're just like, okay, he's not that old. He's just not this bad. He's better than this. George Springer is another one who will be in the article where.
Yeah.
Like George Springer's just off to a crummy start. He was sick for a while. I do get sick, no pun intended, of George Springer. Sometimes I feel like there's always something wrong with him. Going back to when he was in Houston, just a lot of little nagging injuries. This year he's been sick. It's kind of weird. It kind of hung around. But either way, George Springer is just way better than the ball player he's been so far this year. So in a trading league, if someone has lost patience with him, you can get him for a 4 or 5 round discount in comparison to the value he was drafted at, then like I don't even really need to look at the advanced stats. He's probably going to come around.
Yeah. I think you're right about that. We hear about hitters heating up all the time. Jose Ramirez, similar. And, heating up is the operative term. He's on a bereavement leave right now. But there have been other years where Ramirez heated up along with the weather. So even though you look at his numbers and you're kind of nonplussed by them right now, 4 homers, 22 RBI, does have the 5 stolen bases. That helps and 21 runs, but he's not really tearing it up, not first round price tearing it up, but he's not killing you either. He's not Gunnar Henderson. No. He's not that bad. It's kind of funny though. It's a fine line to draw like, okay, I'm going to trust this guy, but not that guy. I'm going to trust this guy, but not that guy. And they have similar statistical and batted ball profiles.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, sometimes you look at what are the advanced stats telling you, but sometimes you do have to kind of go with your gut. Yeah, Ramirez's paces right now are roughly 20, 20, 80, 80. Yeah. 285 batting average. That's way below what you're not way below. In home runs, it's below, and in runs and RBIs, it's below. But the Guardians' offense has been really, really bad. Yeah. Compared to what it was expected to be. So that's part of the reason why he's a 364 on base. It's better than each of his last 2 years. And his runs and RBI paces are lower because he's been in a worse lineup. That's not all his fault. So I'd say all of his variance right now is just in a normal expected range of variance, and it'll swing back the other way at some point. So for example, if in a trading league, if I could get Jose Ramirez for now like a second round type price or a late first round type price, I think I'd still be all over that.
Yeah, I think I would too. I think so. Yeah. I think that's right.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to talk about some hitters on the rise, but first, going to take care of a little bit of business here from our good friends at Rival Fantasy. A new MLB season means it's time for a new kind of daily fantasy baseball. Rival Fantasy is the fantasy platform reinventing the way daily and weekly games are played, and they brought new games to the ballpark this year that fantasy players won't find anywhere else. Rival Fantasy's games include Fantasy Bingo, head-to-head player challenges, and Fantasy Book, where users can select over-unders for 2 to 5 players. With games like this, daily fantasy has never been better. Right now, RotoWire listeners can get a $50 protected first play. That means if you win your first play, you keep your winnings. But if you lose your first entry, Rival Fantasy will fully refund you up to $50. Go to play.rivalfantasy.com/signup and use code RotoWireMLB at sign-up and deposit a minimum of $25 to get your first entry on Rival protected up to $50. Now's the time to step up to the plate and become a Rival today. Welcome to the arena. Also, we're on the Blue Wire Network. Here are their ads. All right. A lot of hitters are on the rise. We're going to talk about them here. Let's talk a little, first of all, if you missed out on Christopher Morel, Matt McLain debuted with the Reds, and he's batting second already in this lineup.
Tough spot to come by on the Reds. The chance to bat second. No, I think Matt McLain is a really exciting option for FAAB this week. He was tearing it up in AAA this year, and he's got the steals, like 10 steals already this year, 27 last year. Looks like he's already got, respectable power. I mean, last year he only hit 232 with a lot of strikeouts. This year the strikeout rate was a little bit better, but he was hitting 348 because he's kind of, tearing the cover off the ball when he was hitting it this year. So I think he's really interesting. And I just think playing time is abundant on the Reds right now if he can hold up his end of the bargain.
Yeah. And he's the first of a number of prospects that are probably going to get the call. Ellie De La Cruz is tearing it up at Louisville. So wouldn't be surprised to see him get the shot later on this season, sooner rather than later. Of course, Christian Encarnacion Strand is another guy we're all interested in. He's not going to be a shortstop. We know that one. But they do have to figure out who's the shortstop and who's third, who's second. McLain's the first, and he's getting that time at shortstop. They're leaving Spencer Steer alone at third base for now. But this obviously it starts the clock on Steer a little. It starts ticking a little faster with Steer too, because that's one less spot that's available for the next call up. Jonathan India is obviously firmly ensconced at second base until for now. Maybe they move him, maybe they trade him. That's because I think as a second baseman, Jonathan India is a good third baseman. Maybe not even a good third baseman. He moved from third to second to help the Reds out back when they had, I think it was Moustakas was at third. Can't lose Mike Moustakas. He certainly can't move him off the position. But India is now, he is their second baseman, and he's fine. I just don't think he's a good defender, and I wonder what their long-term plans are for him.
Yeah, that is fair to wonder. I have a hunch he'll make it at least through this season as their second baseman. The Reds lineup could be kind of cool and exciting later this year, depending on what they decide to do, like you said, with the rest of this wave of prospects. So
some of these guys have to play the outfield though at some point. They got Noelvi Marte. They've got the kid they got from San Diego, and I'm blanking on his name right now. Point is, they have a lot of shortstop prospects, and not all of them are even going to be able to stay in the infield, let alone at shortstop. Maybe some of them will be used as trade capital. I hope they take their time in trading any hitting prospects though, because for pitchers, because you really want to have like that core established before you start trading for pitchers.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And like you said, there's not much blocking them in the outfield as far as if they want to try some of these guys in the outfield. Jake Fraley's bat has come alive a little bit the last few days, but I don't know. I kind of think we know what he is right now. By now,
he's fine.
He's fine.
Yeah,
he's not special at all. It's kind of cool that Nick Senzel's not hurt yet, but I still
Nick Senzel's been playing a lot of third also.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So he can play in the outfield if they want him to. Will Myers, I think, is trade bait in the summer.
Who wants Will Myers?
I was going to say if they could get anything for him, it would just be to get him to anyone who wants him on their roster.
I mean,
playoff run, maybe no one, but there's time between now and then for him to have some success and for them to kind of get rid of him for next to nothing.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big week for Myers. He's got to start hitting, but he's got 3 homers right now. He's hitting 198. He's got 11 RBI. I mean, you're not even going to get Tommy Pham return for him. You're just getting nothing and liking it there.
Yeah, and he was someone who a lot of people felt was like an interesting, like in 15 team leagues, like round like 16, 17. I feel like type pick this year was like, oh, Will Myers. He's never played in a park like Cincinnati. This could unlock a little bit more power with him. Maybe he can be a 20 homer guy there. And he does steal some bases. And
they're hoping to become Brandon Drury is what they were really hoping.
Yeah, some variation of Brandon Drury. You're right. So, and now I'd say the Reds are just hoping he could hit well enough that they could trade him for some low minors prospect.
Yeah, and then hope that they develop like the pitcher into someone that's better.
Yep.
You never know. It can happen, but it doesn't often happen.
Yeah, but anyways, back to McLain. I think he will fetch some. It depends how he does this week, obviously, but I think he'll fetch some decent bids. Maybe not as big as Morel as far as bids. I guess I could see it, but I don't know. What do you think? I felt like Morel was consistently where he was available in NFBC leagues going for, what do you think, 150 to 200?
Yeah, he went. I was thinking I could get him around for 100, 115.
Yeah,
and I wasn't even close. He was like 187.
Yeah, so I felt like that's where I was seeing him, high 100s. McLain, I guess it'll just, if McLain had a really good week, I think that would happen with him as well. If he's hitting 225 with a 670 OPS by Sunday, then I think he goes for maybe more like 100 or something like that. Because then there'd be concerns maybe that he won't stick.
Yeah. So the thing is, they're in Coors Field right now. Then they get the Yankees at home.
Yeah.
Clark Schmidt, Brito, and Herman. They get to miss out. Obviously they miss out on Garrett Cole. That's huge. Next week, they get 7 games, 4 at home against St. Louis, and then 3 at Chicago Cubs. So, good opportunity for McLain to prove himself. I think Ted was asking, is McLain going to play second and Ellie in shortstop? I think that's one route. I mean, I haven't seen the Reds moving Ellie off of shortstop, so I got to look at a little bit closer on that one there, because I haven't paid full attention to his defense so far, because he was hurt to start the year too. So trying to guess where he's going to be playing is a little tricky, but he's huge. He's 6'5". He's a lot like O'Neal Cruz. I think there's a lot of similarities between the two. Kind of a super toolsy prospect. Looking at him so far, he actually has played some third base. Ellie De La Cruz has 12 games at short, 9 at third. So, that might be an option too, is to put him at third base someday. But they currently have 2 guys that are young enough to be interesting at third base in Senzel and Steer. So I don't know what they're going to do with De La Cruz and what they're going to do with McLain.
No, but I do think there's a scenario where late this season they're all in the regular lineup, and all of a sudden, I don't know if they become they don't become a scary lineup yet, but they become a fun one. Yeah, which you've been waiting for now for a little while.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And farther down the road, they've got Cam Collier at third base too, and Encarnacion Strand, I think they're permanently moving him to first. Is my guess, which is good. By the way, I don't know when we're ever going to see Joey Votto. That's the other thing. We'll see what happens, how quickly, but he had a setback in his rehab, and they've been kind of really quiet on the timeline there. Encarnacion Strand, by the way, he doesn't walk at all. 2 walks so far, 23 Ks. That's in 19 games so far at Louisville. Just think at the big league level, if you want to extrapolate out there a little bit, that K percentage, which is at 23 or 25.8, is going to be a lot worse at the big league level. So we'll see. But yeah, Encarnacion Strand has played 10 games at first and only 4 at third. So and he's played some DH too. So you can see defense is not going to be his priority there. But that's handy. You can't have everybody play shortstop or second.
Right.
So
right. Yeah. Exactly.
All right, that was a lot of Reds talk. Sorry, folks, I got a little sidebarred there. Let's go on to talk about Michael Conforto heating up just a little bit. Kind of a guy that had them as that, like, when's he going to sign? When's he going to sign last year, and then never did sign. The ailment was obviously a lot worse than let on. Struggled at out the gate for the Giants. And they're kind of a bad team. So that's and even still, like, you look at his numbers, he's hitting 205, but he does have 8 homers now.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 4 homers in his last 6 games, and I wouldn't say more impressive, but also impressive, just 1 strikeout in those 6 games. He hasn't been striking out much lately, so maybe there is a sign here that he started after that really, really long layoff, that he started to kind of find his rhythm. So, if he was out there, maybe in any 12s, because he was doing really poorly up until that point.
Yeah,
he might end up being, a good waiver wire gem. And as much as we're chasing all of these prospects when they get called up, in some leagues, there have been really interesting veterans who get dropped that may also be worth just as big of a bid.
Yeah. And I like that he takes a lot of walks. He's a patient hitter. Yeah. And honestly, you missed a full year. Obviously, it's going to take a little time to bounce back. 2020 was clearly an aberration, and I probably have. I think I've probably last year rated, I should say in 2021, I rated him too high because of his 2020 year and the happy fun ball year before that in 2019 when he hit 33 homers. But I mean, he's got an upside. I mean, even in 2017, he had a pretty big year. Now that was a lively ball year also. But yeah, he actually had strung together like 3 or 4 really good years in a row, and then obviously dropped off and then was hurt. So kind of see what happens with him going forward. But I think he's kind of a sneaky buy low. I think he's still possible to buy a little low too.
Yeah. Also, as platoon happy as the Giants are, they aren't really platooning him. He's had a decent amount of plate appearances against lefties so far this year, and he's done fine in those plate appearances. The sample size is too small to draw a conclusion on. I'm just more looking at the playing time. They're treating him as an everyday player, and I was worried that they were going to treat him just as a platoon player, that he'd be like a Mike Yastrzemski, but
Yeah.
maybe a higher end version of Mike Yastrzemski, or maybe not, maybe just Mike Yastrzemski.
Yet another Mike Yastrzemski, who I like, by the way. He's back off the
and
IL.
he just came back. That's right. And
Yeah.
you know what? I think they don't have room to platoon both of them since they're both left-handed outfielders. So they're playing Conforto and platooning Yastrzemski.
Yeah, it sounds about.
Yeah.
And and every once in a while Conforto will get a day. I think that's definitely the construct there.
Yeah.
All right, you picked up Jake Bauers everywhere. Why?
I don't know. No, I do know. So he plays against righties. They face 7 of them this week. 4 in Toronto, 3 in Cincinnati. And he's been hitting like fairly high in the lineup. Today he's hitting 5th. Yesterday he hit leadoff. Stole a base yesterday, which I wasn't counting on. I'm not going to say that I was a genius to see that one coming.
Bauers.
Yeah, I mean Bauers is someone. So I try not to get caught up in this because I do feel like when Yankees get called up, right, the hype train speeds away in ways that it doesn't really for other teams. I'm a Leafs fan, so I get that. It's the same thing in hockey. When a player gets brought up by the Leafs, I feel like the Yankees is the same thing. So, but Bauers was playing really well in AAA to start the year. The Yankees definitely have injuries and have a need. So I think as a short-term option, because of all the righties on the schedule coming up, you add him and then you just, see where things go from there. But he does have a bit of speed, not much, but a bit. He could steal a few bases, and like I said, he was hitting really well in the minors this year. I think there's some potential there. It's a good park to hit home runs in. So I felt like on Sunday no one wanted Jake Bauers at all.
I picked him up actually in Scarf, which is modeled after the NFBC main event, 15 team mixed league, same sort on the NFBC platform, etc.
Yeah.
I lost CJ Crone. I lost CJ Crone in both there and in Yogurt.
Yep.
And I picked up Ryan Noda in one league and Bauers in the other.
Right. I felt like I was getting Bauers for $10, like in 1,000 out of 1,000. Like it was that cheap. 20 would get him every time. I felt like 10 would usually get him. That it was that cheap every time. And as far as just even a weekly streamer, like he's gotten a stolen base. If he can play the rest of the week and say hit 1 home run, all of a sudden he's had a really good week.
Yeah,
for a
I
streamer.
think that's right.
Brandon Belt was the other one who I had my eye on. The Jays play right-handers, I think, every game but one this week, and he's kind of started to come out of his early season funk. So he was someone else that I had my eye on. I think in the big picture, and I didn't get Yuri Perez, but if we're going to be bidding this much on these pitchers, we have to find cheap ways, right? Cheap ways to find hitters.
Yeah, agree.
And that this is the way to do it. Like on Sunday, you can go and spend $120 on Matt McLain, but maybe it depends what you think he's capable of. But you can get a lot of Jake Bauers for $120. You can get Jake Bauer, the type of Jake Bauers players for the next 10 weeks for that price.
I kind of think you're supposed to get 1 or 2 big name prospect or big buys, and then you got to play small ball the rest of the season, basically.
Right.
37-18 was the bid on Bauers. So,
oh wow, that's pretty high.
Mr. Bauer, he is now on my.
So I did not see that in any of my leagues where he went, and I think I got him in our labor league for 1, and I did not have the tiebreaker. So I think that means no one else. It does mean that no one else bid on him.
Yeah. So, what did I think?
Now I know that $1 in the labor league is a little more precious, because of the fact that there are no $0 bids, and so there are some weeks where I'm like, oh, I'd take this guy for $1 for the week, and then I'm like, no, I need to save the dollar.
Yeah. You know what's funny is I need to save dollars, and yet I still bought 3 players last week somehow. Who did I buy? I bought Corey Julks.
Yeah.
I bought Matt Thaiss because I had Nick Fortes as my catcher, and I couldn't anymore.
Yeah.
And then I got Patrick Corbin for $1 there too.
Okay.
So there you go. But yeah, Jake Bauers, actually, you know what? Bauers, you got him for $1 and it doesn't list a second bid. It's because Bauers, he was my third choice behind.
Yeah. He was in your waterfall.
Yeah. Casey Schmidt was my first choice. Corey Julks was my second. And the reason I prioritized Julks is there's long-term, I think, staying power for him perhaps, with Michael Brantley having the setback. But maybe I would have been better off.
I did grab Julks in a league as well. I am not sure. Like you said, there is staying power there. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. He has a 640 OPS, so I'm not really sure if his bat is good enough. 31 strikeouts, 3 walks, but he can also steal bases.
Yeah.
So he's already got 5. Like he can steal bases, and that's not an aberration. So yeah,
Right.
Jolks is interesting too. Bauers, I felt like was a great fit if you're just looking for someone for this week for sure, and maybe he can stick around longer than that. Jolks, if you were like, you know what, I think I'm more interested in playing the long game. I'm not desperate for someone this week, but I'll grab him and see where things go. I think he's interesting too.
Yeah, get up, get down. Corey is no joke in this town. All
Go.
right. We'll move on to after that hideous reference, but especially because it's old school. The fact that I'm not even going to explain it. That I'm trying to explain it is bad. All right. Colorado Rockies. We talked about Crone being out. That means you're getting all the Mike Moustakas you could possibly want. Yay. You also mentioned Brenton Doyle, who is getting some run at center field for the Rockies. Brenton Doyle is a fast human. He's basically, and he's got some power too, some sneaky power. 4 homers and 6 stolen bases in 17 games so far. I didn't really view him as like this guy who should be prioritizing, but maybe I should have taken him a little bit more seriously. 4th round pick in 2019. Did you get him anywhere?
No, I think he's still available in some of my leagues if I want to go after him this week. But yeah, he is definitely someone who's probably going to be a better fantasy player than an actual player. He struck out 171 times in the minors last year. The year before, he struck out 134 times in 97 games, and that was just in high A. Yeah, but last year in 132 games in the minors, 26 homers, 23 steals. So he has that fantasy friendly skill set where he can get you homers and steals. It's not just the small sample size so far. He can run, and there's a bit of power there. It'll just be a matter of whether he's a good enough hitter to just have an on base percentage above at 300 or something like that. Something that's good enough to keep him in the lineup. But since he's on the Rockies, who I guess are kind of unplayable on the road, doesn't make it maybe quite as appealing as it is in some other years. I think he's totally worth picking up. Yeah. Absolutely. The Rockies do have a nice stretch of home series too that's already started. So you missed out on the first one if you didn't get him for this week. But yeah, I think he is someone who could be worth picking up. But I think more as a lower bid.
Yep.
20, 30, something like that.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah,
Golden Hand says he went to the Doyle went to his local college, which is Shepherd. Okay. I don't know where Shepherd is. He's from Virginia, so I'm going to guess somewhere in Virginia is my first guess. So if I'm wrong, well, then I'm wrong.
Players playing for the Rockies is not as much of a lure to me this year. It wasn't last year either, as it is some other years, just because they're pretty unplayable on the road.
Yeah.
So I didn't there were so many years back in the Matt Holliday era when the lineup was good where I'd be like, oh, it plays for the Rockies, and I'm in. I'm interested. Let's get him on the team, see what he can do. Now I don't feel that way quite as much anymore.
Shepherdstown, West Virginia, by the way, is the correct answer on Brenton Doyle. But there you go. 3 walks, 16 Ks. That is of moderate concern, especially if you look at Double-A. Last year in Double-A, 23 walks, 157 Ks. Batting average could be at risk here, but Coors Field mitigates that a little bit. So we'll see. At least he's a home streamer, basically.
Yep.
All right.
So if you have room for one of those and you need steals, right? I pick him up for the steals, and you hope the power's there, but I just pick him up for the steals.
Fred, in the outline, you asked, are owners happy with Joey Meneses? He's hitting 300, kind of heating up a little bit.
Yeah.
But he has 2 homers, 22 RBI, 16 runs. Are owners happy with him? So I've got him in all 3 main events. The one player I have in all.
You're the guy to answer this question.
Yes, I am. And the answer is no, of course. He doesn't run. No stolen base attempts, let alone stolen bases. So if you don't run, you got to hit for power. And Meneses hit for copious power last year. I was willing to sacrifice average to get power. And unfortunately, it's the other way around. He is heated up lately to get that average up. Had 4 hits yesterday. That goes a pretty far way towards doing that. But yeah, I mean, 2 homers. I mean, last homer was on their West Coast road trip at Arizona, where he had a homer on May 7th. That's over a week ago. Hard to get by when you're getting so little power out of one of your lineup spots. And he's and there's been weeks where, he's one of those like now streamers. He's not a regular player. And I drafted him as kind of a regular player with like a 13th, 14th round pick.
Yeah, but now he is hitting 300, and him hitting 300 will keep him in the lineup.
Sure.
So from that regard, I wouldn't say he's a bust. I'm going to say he's just like a, because you're right. We weren't even expecting him to hit 300. I was expecting him to hit 270, 260, 270, say.
Yep.
He so far isn't Frank Schwindel, right? We talked about that a lot before the
Mhm.
season, whether he'd be Frank Schwindel. So far, he isn't Frank Schwindel, who just like almost instantly came crashing back to earth
Yep.
following up his late career breakout season. So he's in the lineup. We just need to see a few more homers. I'm not out on him yet. I looked up, his BABIP's the same as last year, which is high, but at least the same as last year. His XBA is about the same as last year. He needs to hit more homers to justify the pick, but at least he's still playing. So to me, he's not yet a bust. He's just like a slight disappointment.
Yeah, I'd say that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
It's early too, and we know in that ballpark it can heat up in a hurry.
Yeah. He's also hitting the top four base. He's hitting the top four every plate appearance this year.
Yeah.
And I think as long as that batting average looks like it does right now, he'll stay there.
Yeah.
So there's potential.
There is
Yeah.
potential.
Yeah.
I want to talk about two. We mentioned 5 hitters on the rise. By the way, that's 5. I wanted to make sure I was truth in advertising on our title this time. Sometimes we do that, and I want to make sure it's not clickbait. So there you go. But you got a good Twitter question on Brandon Lowe and Willy Adames, 2 slumping hitters right now, 14 team league. How much rope are you going to give them?
Right. So he's asking really, should he cut one of them? I would say Willy Adames, definitely not.
I'd agree.
Yeah, I think Willy Adames was fine in April, 778 OPS, 5 home runs, 2 steals. He's had a crummy May. It is what it is. It's frustrating. It's annoying, but I think he's too good of a player for you to cut. Brandon Lowe's a little different. Like we're now seeing a couple years in a row of him just being basically a pure power hitter, and not an amazing power hitter, but a pure power hitter with a low batting average. He was good in April too, but I felt like it was more early April. He's been really bad in May. I'm not a cut on either one of them. I have Lowe on my labor team.
Yeah.
And
I remember you got 2 second basemen back to back.
That's right. I also got 2 Lows. I got Nate Lowe and Brandon Lowe. I got a Lowe and a Lowe, in like the span of about 3 rounds on that team. I should have him out of my lineup. I haven't been able to make that happen. I think I need to make that happen until he starts to heat up. I've always found him to be a little bit streaky. I don't. In a 12, he said it's a head-to-head, didn't he?
I believe
the
so.
Question. I still have the question right in front of me right now. I was looking at some stats, but if it's a head-to-head and it doesn't have a middle infield spot, I could cut Brandon Lowe.
Yeah,
I don't think I'd cut Adames, but I could cut Brandon Lowe.
Yeah, I'm in the no cut zone for both still, but okay. I get it. I mean, Lowe, this is what he is. He's a low average power hitter.
Yeah, I just think, okay, so if you had no middle infield spot, like is the chances of him coming around worth it? I don't know.
He's in a 14 teamer. I think he's yeah. I didn't see that stipulation, but even if it's there, I'm probably still waiting a little bit longer. I'm stubborn, very stubborn that way.
Yeah.
All right. So there you go. Wanted to hit up that question while we're hitting hitters. So last night, Houston wins. But Ryan Presley did not get the save. He had pitched on Sunday, he had pitched on Friday, and he had pitched on Wednesday. So I kind of think, like in his case, this is just workload management.
Yep.
I'm not too worried about it, but this is the same old story. The Astros have like a million save chances, and so Presley can't get them all.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So far he has 7 of their 12. He did have a little bit of an injury right earlier this year, which hurt him. Brian Abreu stepped in. So he has 7 of their 12. That's pretty much the rate I was expecting from him. Yep. It's why I think he'll finish with a save total in the 25 to 30 range, not one in the 35 to 40 range.
Right.
This just is kind of what it is. And it's a little bit frustrating. And unfortunately, that's a solid bullpen. Rafael Montero hasn't pitched up to his potential so far this year, but it's still early. It's a solid bullpen where when Presley can't get a save, we don't know who's going to get the save. Could be Abreu, could be Neris, could be Montero.
Yeah, that's the thing that's frustrating. It's like, oh yeah, Abreu. No, it's not Abreu. Abreu pitched on Sunday as well, though. So I think that's why Neris got the chance last night.
Yeah.
He got a chance against the White Sox early in the season when Presley was unavailable. But the thing is, Neris also pitched Sunday. He also pitched Friday. He's on the same schedule. I guess it's just he's got more of a rubber arm. Neris is actually pitching very well. Kind of under the radar how good he's been pitching right now. But that's the Astros bullpen in a nutshell. They have copious options. They don't have an obvious pivot, and that's annoying for us, but it's good for them.
That's right. Hey, while we're on closers, I'm going to ask you a closer question that's not on the outline. I never do that to you, but it's on my mind.
Okay.
Do you worry about Emmanuel Clase? He leads the majors in saves because he leads the majors in save chances. So from that regard, you've gotten what you wanted with him, but the strikeout rate is way down. He's just got 13 strikeouts. He's already got half as many walks as he had all of last season. I don't know. I'm a little worried. His ERAs jumped a lot. His FIPS jumped a lot. He's okay, but he's not what I was expecting. Really, his fantasy value has been propped up by the fact that he has the most save chances of anyone in the majors, with 5 more than any other reliever. And that's just luck. And it's not like the Guardians are that good. So that's just been luck for him. And the fact that it is, I guess, also attributed to the fact that the Guardians treat him like an old school closer, a traditional closer. He gets basically all their save chances. But he is not so far, he has not been the pitcher that he has been previously. In his
I am low-key concerned. Velocity is down a mile. I am low-key concerned.
That's why I brought it up.
Velocity is down 1.5 miles on his fastball. You mentioned the K percentage. It's nearly halved. It was 28.4 last year, which is insane. But it's 14.8 this year, which is awful. Just really awful. The swinging strike percentage was at 17.1%. It's now 10.7. Now 17% is just ludicrously good. But 10.7 slightly below average for a high-end reliever that throws as hard as he does. He could be one where this straightens out, though, also. But how many times have we seen these elite relievers burn out fast? Burn hard, burn fast.
I know. I really felt going into the season, I loved his skill set. Like, he just has that. And I thought it was a little bit Mariano Rivera-like in the sense that the strikeout total is not insane, but it's good. And he gets a ton of ground balls. And I think it's just like a really good, and he doesn't walk anyone. So I felt like it's just a really good skill set, like a very sustainable one for a long time. And it still may be, but he definitely hasn't opened this season, like we're expecting to. And so far his value has been propped up just by luck with save chances. I wonder in some trading leagues if there would be an opportunity to trade him away to someone who's just impressed by, first of all, his name value. Second of all, his saves total.
And counterpoint, he's only walked 5 guys. He's only allowed 1 homer. So it's not like he's getting crushed either.
Nope. It's just that the 5 walks are like last year he only walked 10. The year before he only walked 16. Right. So the 5 walks, it's just up a bit. He's definitely not as dominant, and he's blown 4 saves.
Yep.
So he definitely isn't what we were expecting from a pitching perspective. If he had a normal amount of save chances, right now he'd probably have 9 saves, and we'd be talking about whether he's a bust or not.
Dude, I'd kill for 9 saves from my closer right now.
There are some pitchers with solid save totals this year, right? 9 saves. So when you say you kill for that, there's a dozen of them with 9 saves so far. One's AJ Minter, but
really,
one's Kyle Finnegan.
Yeah,
one's Kyle Finnegan in his 6.28 ERA.
Yeah. So there you go. But Finnegan's actually kind of corrected himself. He's had 2 just awful outings, all that have just really skewed everything. But that's what happens with closers. They have awful outings, and it skews for a long time. All right, question in the bullpen about the Yankees. 2 of them, actually. 2 people asking about the Yankees. Are you avoiding them or picking up one of their relievers? Robert says, I have Michael King, but I also think about adding Ian Hamilton, good ratios, and Ks if not getting saves. course, Wandy Peralta got 2 saves over the weekend. It was King last night that got the 4-out save. Clay Holmes is like the fireman now. Any one of those 4 guys could get the next save. That's the problem.
Right. So it probably wouldn't be King if the saves tonight, just because of him pitching last night. It could be, but he came in the 8th inning last night. So it probably wouldn't be King tonight. If I could roster any one of them, I would roster King. I don't think I would roster Ian Hamilton. Now there's some context missing on Robert's question, which not Robert's fault. You can only type so much in the box, but if it was a league where just for some reason you need, like we talked about with those Yahoo leagues where maybe you have 6 or 7 relievers on your team and you stream your starters in out of your lineup, okay, then I could see it. But just in general, I think that is going to be a muddy bullpen unless King takes control of it for a little while. So I don't think I need to use 2 roster spots on Yankees relievers right now. And if I couldn't have King, I don't know if I'd use any.
I agree. I think Hamilton's got really good skills. I'm interested in him.
Yep.
But I don't have any Clay Holmes this year. I didn't like having had him last year and seeing how Boone used Holmes down the stretch.
Yep.
I just wanted to stay away from that.
They went to Hamilton last night in the 8th when they were in trouble.
Yeah.
And then by the time he was done, they were in more trouble. Then they went to King and he got them out of trouble. And then he finished off the game. So it was a tough spot for Hamilton, and the hits off him were definitely not rockets. So it was a tough spot for him. He came in with runners on base. There was he broke Vladdy's bat. Vladdy happened to muscle it to the outfield. So I wouldn't say it's a sign that Hamilton's not a good pitcher, but yeah, I think that's where we're at with the Yankees bullpen.
We're going to go with the Canadian homage for the next question from the Hart Foundation. And this, so obviously you get the answer. So I've already answered the chat, but is Fairbanks going to be back to being the man and Jason Adam to set up for the Rays? Fairbanks came off the IL this week.
Yeah, I think so. I think I would guess that's the way it plays out. Maybe Adam has pitched well enough to get, Adam's pitched well enough to get some saves.
Yeah.
I think we're back to Adam. Like going into the season, I thought Adam would get 10 saves. He'll probably get more than that because he had this nice little stretch. He could get a lot more than that. Actually, I think the play with this whole thing is Fairbanks is the closer mostly now. In some leagues, if Adam gets dropped in the sense of like, okay, now he's not the closer, he's just a middle reliever, let's ship him to waivers. I would be interested in picking him up on the possibility that Fairbanks gets hurt again.
Yep.
So what I would love to see in my leagues is for Fairbanks to get a couple saves this week and a couple saves next week, and then Adam gets dropped. And then I come in and pick him up for 2% of my budget, use him as a useful middle reliever, and I don't want to wish ill will on anyone, and then, maybe Fairbanks gets hurt and I've got a closer again.
Yeah.
Because they did clearly show when Fairbanks was out that when Fairbanks is out, it's Adam. It's not a committee.
And I think one of the fun stories of the year is the Rays are actually using their relievers in a traditional format. Now, I think it's because they lack depth in the bullpen. So, I think at some point they might be tired of not getting games to Fairbanks and Adams and Adam. Excuse me, I keep wanting to say Adams. It's Adam singular. But I think that's part of the issue is that they're hurting for bullpen help right now. Some of the guys they picked up haven't worked out. Their lefties in particular. Jalen Beeks is the opener today, but the lefties in particular have been really bad. Garrett Clevenger is now out for the season. I think that's going to be one of the interesting storylines. I wouldn't be surprised to see them add talent in that bullpen. For the longest time, like, we can fake it. We can turn your discard into someone good. And I think they'll keep trying to do that, but they may have to actually go get somebody established at some point too.
Yeah. One of my favorite non-fantasy storylines for the rest of the season will be, can the Rays actually run away with the AL East? Because with all these pitching injuries.
No,
I actually don't
agree.
think they can anymore. I thought it looked like they were going to, but no Springs, no Rasmussen. I think anyone counting on Rasmussen to play meaningful, make meaningful contributions the rest of the way is, that's pretty hopeful at this point.
Oh, I agree. The fact that he immediately went on the 60-day IL, that's your sign.
So, and then like you said, a bullpen that's kind of beat up. I'm very interested to see that. I think they will not. I know it's the Rays and it's hard to doubt them. I still think they'll make the playoffs, but it looked for a while like they could run away with the division. I don't know who. There's also just so many teams. Like every other team in that division's above 500. It doesn't have to be the Orioles who are in second. It could be the Blue Jays. It could be the Yankees. It could probably not be the Red Sox, but maybe. But someone I feel like reels them in, if not 2 teams. And when we're on August 1st, I'm going to say that there's a couple of teams that are within 4 games or something, or maybe even ahead of them. But somewhere I think the Rays are now going to have to actually play for it and not run away with the division. I think had Springs and Rasmussen stayed healthy, maybe they could have.
Yeah, I think they will act though. I mean, I think they will.
Yeah.
I just they have enough trade capital.
Yep.
I think the front office can be aggressive when they want to.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously will ownership let them is always the storyline, but I think they will. That's my guess.
Add, but not add like superstar starters.
Yeah,
that's not really their MO usually.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm gonna finish with 2 starting pitchers, one good, one bad last night. The good one, Jack Flaherty.
Yeah.
Bam! Out of nowhere, throws a gem with Wilson Contreras calling the game behind the plate, of all things. Is this the real Jack Flaherty, or what happened here?
That is, if you know the answer to that one, I think you could make a lot of money right now. I don't know if the Cardinals know the answer to that one, but it was really impressive. Like you said, back to the original plan at catcher. He was really good. Especially from a strikeout perspective. I'm still wary of using him in his next start. Good for the people who started him for 2 starts this week. I would not have done it, so good for them. When I go back and look at his game logs, okay, he had the start against the Angels that was just a complete disaster.
Yeah.
But you take that one out, so he started with 7 shutout. Okay, great, 10 strikeouts. Sorry. Oh, I'm just looking at his last 5 games right now. My bad. His last night was great. Before that was like not good, as passable. He does have some starts this year that were like okay. Like you go back to April 23rd against Seattle, 6 innings, 3 earned runs, 9 strikeouts. He does have some decent starts this year. If Flaherty was dropped in a shallow league, I think I would be ready to go pick him up.
Scott Jenstad picked him up in Friends and Family in our league. So
okay.
For what it's worth. But I think he picked him up after the start. But why not? Why not? It's kind of a like, okay, what if he has figured it out? Why not? Because we've seen it before. So, maybe the odds are against him coming back to that, but it's not like this is just a one start, trying to think of they're like Chris List and I used to talk about the concept of signature significance. A guy can strike out 10 and walk none. We're like, okay, well, that means something. But sometimes even that can be a mirage. I don't think that's necessarily the case here, but so I think why not take a chance?
Yeah, I mean he's had a few solid starts. That 10 run start really looms. Like that's the only start this year where he gave up more than 4 earned runs. So his other starts, like he has starts a couple with 4 earned runs, a couple with 3 earned runs. Like he has starts that were like meh, but they weren't killers. Like it's the one start that was a killer. I think he's. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have 0 shares. I don't know if he's going to be really good the rest of the way. The Cardinals in general have turned things around. And I think I don't think the Cardinals are awesome, but I think the Cardinals are way better than they showed at the start of the year. And they were due to turn things around. Miles Michaelis I have him on a couple teams. Like he hasn't been great lately, but he has kind of turned things around. He's gone from kind of unplayable to playable.
Although it's funny you say that. We actually used him last week, 2 starts, and he pitched well against the Red Sox in Fenway. I'm like, all right, we dodged that bullet. He gets the Dodgers this weekend. Tim and I benched Michaelis this week.
Yeah, I benched him this week too. But I think that's where he's at. I think like one start, he's not a one start against the Dodgers, who aren't like super amazing this year, but are pretty good. Like he's not a one start against the Dodgers kind of pitcher. Like he's a fringe guy at with that kind of a matchup. But I saw him dropped in some leagues earlier this season. He's kind of turned around. I just think in general, the Cardinals, like we talked about, Arenado's turn it around. I think the Cardinals will slowly climb their way back into a mediocre division race. We'll see if they win it or not. But yeah, I think the Cardinals were definitely a team, like we talked about, like at the beginning of the year, obviously targeting the A's, but also we talked about the Marlins lineup being one to target and the Royals being one to target. Even when the Cardinals were doing terribly, I wasn't really targeting them because I felt like, as far as like using my players against them, because I just felt like this turnaround was inevitable. They're at least a decent team.
Yeah.
And get ready because at some point Matt Liberatore will come up and he will maybe be the next pitcher to fetch 250 plus.
Yeah. I think that's probably right, unless it's Gavin Williams, who I think is another.
Yeah.
I like Gavin Williams better.
Yeah, he's the other one. You're right. Yep.
But yeah, I think that both of those are a possibility there.
Yeah.
The other guy I wanted to talk about was Grayson Rodriguez. Ooh,
Okay.
was that bad yesterday? Not the first time that he's been bad. And he's been bad against some mediocre opponents. The Royals got him pretty good a couple weeks ago. He's had a couple of really good starts, but I've got him in AL Tout Wars. I have him and Lance Lynn, Fred, and that's not fun. I want to find ways to bench him, and it's hard in an AL only. I mean, you're basically picking up a reliever for him. You're not going to find a better starter,
and you're not even picking up a good one. Like back to my Eric Swanson comment, like you're not in AL league, you're not even picking up Aaron Swanson. You're just picking up any random reliever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's going to be every once in a while you get a Cano that emerges, and you have to be pretty quick to add him in that sort of format there.
Yep. So when you look at Rodriguez, like back in April, the strikeout and walk rates were pretty good. Like every April start, there were 5 of them. Every start had 5 strikeouts. 2 of them one had 5, 2 had 6, 1 had 8, 1 had 9. Okay, that's really good. The walks were not great. Home runs, you only gave up 2 all month. But then this month, everything has fallen apart. He's not striking batters out. He's given up 2 or more home runs in all 3 of his starts. So, like he has been a mess. He's an automatic bench right now. The question is, I think with him is he a drop?
Right.
Would you drop him for Jack Flaherty? Yes.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, I would too. Would you drop him for Michael Wacha, who pitched really well last night?
I would not.
Great
start last night, but he's a streamer.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Rodriguez, I think I'm keeping him. I think as long as the Orioles are keeping him, I'm keeping him. If they sent him down, I'd have to read the quotes. If I felt like he was getting sent down for a month or more, I think I'd have to drop him.
Yeah, I think so.
Because you can't get anything out of him, and you don't even know when he'll be back, and when he's back, it will even be any good or not. But right. I did think about those players kind of in a bunch of Wacha, Flaherty, and Rodriguez as far as just pitchers who have polarizing performances last night. And if you're in a shallower league, like what moves would you make with each of them?
Yeah, that's always handy to do. I like doing that as well.
I think what the decision with Rodriguez, as far as would I drop him, would come down to can I bench him? Because you can't use him right now. So next week, the week after, like if I can bench him, let's say I've got a 7-man bench and the rest of my staff is pretty good, is going pretty well. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'll throw him on the bench. I don't really care. I'm going to leave him there for as long as he's on the Orioles. I'm going to leave him there for now, unless I get a bunch of injuries. Yeah. If I had injuries on my bench and I can't afford to bench him, then I think at that point I'd have to drop him.
I think that's right. And of course, if he gets sent down, he's gone. He gets sent off.
Yeah, I think so. It would have to be, for me to keep him through getting sent down, it would have to be like very clear from the Orioles that he was going down just for a start or two.
Exactly. You know, we're still waiting on Taj Bradley to get the call back up.
Yeah, that's been a really frustrating one.
Same league, by the way. And I lost Springs there. I lost Urquidy there. How am I doing? I'm doing really well. Really good team. Great team. Best team ever. All right. I had a lot of that this year. All right. I think we're going to end on that happy note, unless you got anything else you want to add.
The only other one I'll throw in is Alek Manoah, and he was,
7 walks. 7. Yeah. Not the worst of the day, by the way. Brad Keller walked 8 yesterday, but
he walked 8 on the waiver wire. Alek Manoah walked 8 in probably a lot of lineups.
And you're stuck with him mode, I think, with him.
You're stuck with him, but you don't have to use him. I think. What did I see last night on Twitter? I think I saw that he's the first pitcher since Jake Arrieta in 2016 to have 7 walks and 2 home runs in a single start.
Yeah,
that's impressive. It's hard to do. See, he did something no one's done in years.
Yeah,
I think
achievement unlocked.
Yeah, he's stuck in lineups in NFBC style leagues. Like he's stuck in lineups until obviously through the weekend. Like you may have to use him this weekend.
Yeah, 2 starts Baltimore. This week. Yeah,
I know. That's why I feel like he was probably in a lot of lineups. There's probably a lot of people who just like kind of said, you know what, I drafted this guy as my number 2 starter.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've got it, or maybe even a few their number 1. Like he's got 2 starts this week. I've got to take a shot at him.
Because if you can't start him, you're pretty much screwed.
Yeah, but you can't drop him. Yeah. Like I think no matter how bad it goes for him, it'd have to go really bad for a really long time before you drop him. Because we've seen what his upside is, and you know what you've invested in him. Yeah. It'd have to be a really dire situation for me to drop him, or a shallow league. So in a 10-team league, maybe in a 10-team league, maybe I could drop him.
I probably even still couldn't then, but
yeah,
I'm
I don't know.
stubborn that way.
When I write Yahoo articles, I do see like guys like Tanner Bybee are still available in a lot of leagues. Like in a league like that, I could drop Manoah. If I can pick up guys like that, I can drop Manoah and just work the stream, the spot, whatever. So
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. It's in those types of leagues. In any league that's really competitive, yeah, I think I just have to hang on to him. But like, he does not seem like he's close to figuring this out.
No, he doesn't. After showing some promise and a couple starts, like 3 starts ago against the Yankees in Yankee Stadium, this was just brutal.
If I want to play glass half full, half empty on him, glass half full, Kikuchi has kind of figured it out this year, better than last year. As far as just Blue Jays, Barrios has kind of figured it out this year, at least better than last year. If I want to play glass half empty, it took both those guys an entire season and off season to figure it out. Like once that snowball started rolling downhill last year, it kept going all the way to the end of the season.
That's exactly
And if you had either one of them last year, the fact they figured it out this year doesn't really help you at all.
Yep.
So
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So I'm saying I would not buy low on Manoah.
I wouldn't.
I might even sell low if I could get something of interest to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
All right, that's what we're going to end on there. Another happy note. So, hey, great conversation in the chat room again, as always. Thanks for those who were streaming live with us. Really appreciate it. Thanks to Rival Fantasy for their sponsorship, and thanks to Fred for spending an hour with me. It's an hour 10, but in Canadian, that's an hour. So
that's right. That's right. Actually, I think it's only 90 cents. So
okay,
there you go.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. James Anderson will be with you tomorrow, and I've got Steve Gardner on Thursday. So looking forward to that. Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care.